This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Will supervisors please take your seats? Would like to call to order the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors this Tuesday, October 15th. And has this, I guess our clerk isn't here right now, has this meeting been posted? Thank you. We'll begin our meeting with the honoring of the flag and a moment of reflection by Supervisor Moritz. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Sometime during this, my tenure here, a member of this board came to me and said they felt guilty they had not served in the U.S. military. I'd like to tell you guys a quick story, I think it's going to be quick, and explain why no one in this room should ever feel that way. Back in 1971, I was in basic training. Our senior drill sergeant was a man named Pittman. He was the meanest son of a gun I had ever come across. He said every day, he would say, "There is one day in basic training you will never forget and you will always regret." He said, "That's the day I take this company on a 7-mile forced march." Well, one morning that day came. We fell out with our steel pots on, our M16s, our backpacks were completely loaded. And in those days, the Army didn't wear tennis shoes, we had our heavy black boots on. Now, when my company fell out, it was 200 men. We were divided into 4 platoons. Each platoon was divided into 4 squads. Each squad had 12 men. I was the first squad leader of the first platoon. That meant that when we stood in formation, I was in the very front on the left corner. About the time the Army ambulances pulled up behind us, the senior drill sergeant called the company to attention. And then to our surprise, a man walked forward, a soldier we'd never seen before. As he came around the corner of the formation past me, I would have judged him as 6 feet 3 inches tall, about 240 pounds. I weighed 118 pounds at the time. To say his arms were bigger than my leg was probably no exaggeration. As he walked past, I looked at his uniform. He was a full colonel. He was airborne qualified, he had been in Vietnam, and he was a Green Beret. The senior drill sergeant turned the command of the company over to the colonel. He looked at us and he said 2 words, "Left face." 400 boots hit the ground and we turned. Now we're in a column and I'm at the very front of the column on the front right corner. He walks up, stands directly beside me. He looks down at me and he says to me, "Soldier, you will keep up with me. You will not fall behind 1 step. Do you understand me?" I mustered all the courage I could. I opened my mouth and said, "Yes, sir." 7 miles later, we were standing at the same point. He called right face. And then he announced in a bold voice, he said, "This is the most homogeneous unit I have ever had the honor of marching with. Dismissed." As I bent over, gasping for breath, I looked at my platoon. 3 guys fell out from exhaustion. I looked at my squad. We were missing 1. He had a broken ankle. At that moment, I knew the senior drill sergeant was wrong. This was a day I would never forget, but this was also a day I would never regret. You see, I had this feeling of esprit de corps. I'd gone through something difficult with my unit. We had accomplished something and survived together. When I look around this room, there are some times when I'm here that I see members of my platoon and members of my unit. It seems to me that sometimes when we come to these meetings, we're on an endless, painful march together. Everyone in this room is serving their district, their county, their state, and their country. Everyone in this room should always think that they should always be proud of what they're doing. Never feel guilty for what you have not done. Be proud instead for what you are doing. So I would like to say to each of you, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Supervisor Moritz. Now, ladies and gentlemen, will you please take your pads, your keypads, and register your attendance? And we have a waiting.
There's 24.
We have 24, so we have a quorum. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes, the Journal of Proceeding, from October 1st. Is there a motion? By Supervisor Coffey, seconded by Supervisor Bowler. Are there any additions, corrections, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the Journal of Proceedings, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the Journal of Proceedings is approved. The next thing that we have on our agenda is a rather nice happening, and I'm wondering if we might ask Zoe Roberts to step forward. I would look for this particular candidate has been appointed by our county board chair and is back for confirmation from this body, as is our tradition. And so the first thing that I would ask you to do is that we have a motion to confirm by Robin Leary, seconded by Ray Hennig. And is there any discussion? I will say that we had two very good candidates, and I don't think we could have gone wrong with either one. All in favor of the motion for confirmation, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And Zoe, would you step forward?
Zoe, I'd like to give you your oath of office, so I need you to raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Zoe Roberts,
Have been appointed to the office of County Board Supervisor, District 27.
having been appointed to the office of County Board Supervisor, District 27,
Swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of your ability.
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll have you sign in.
Welcome to the board, Supervisor Roberts. At this point, we have a public comment period, as we do in each one of our board meetings. I do not have anyone on the list that has indicated a desire to speak. Did we miss anyone? Is there anyone wishing to address the board? And I see no takers, and so we will move on to the reports to the county board. And I think that under that particular item, you have received as an addendum a number of different reports that are written, including the contingency fund report, the payments over $10,000 from the Finance Department, the compensatory time report from the Finance Department, and the number of employees in the county staff as of September 30th. Are there any questions in regard to any one of those reports? Seeing none, we will move on then to our oral reports. And next up, Catherine, I'll call on you. There we go.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Very good. Before you is the final proposed budget from the Finance and Budget Committee. Along with that, there is a supervisory budget amendment form. The instructions as well as the form are there in paper copy. You will also be emailed an actual electronic copy, so if you prefer to utilize an electronic form for submission, you may do so. If you have any questions, either Norb Kirk, the finance director, or myself would be happy to help you with that if you would like to propose a budget amendment. It does not preclude your ability to make a budget amendment on the board floor as the budget is being considered. This is simply a way for you to think ahead of time about a proposed amendment that you may desire to offer. And so again, I would offer the assistance of our staff in any budget amendment that you would desire to craft. Thank you.
The next individual, whoops, excuse me, Supervisor Miller.
Yesterday at an ADRC meeting, we were discussing budget updates and so on and so forth. And Linda, the current director, had indicated that she had heard, she'd left the meeting prior to the discussion, but had heard that it's possible that in the future vacant positions are going to have to go through various boards, the board, the finance committee, the admin committee, and so on and so forth. And I hadn't heard that, nor anyone else on the committee, so I just wanted some clarification as to whether that was true or not.
And actually, if you look in your budget book, you will see that written, so part of the work when Finance and Budget met, they offered 2 policy statements, and one was in regard to the filling of vacant positions. So they are putting that forward as part of the proposed 2020 budget, and they're both written out in their full form in that budget document so that you can actually take a look at that and consider that. And yes, that is part of the recommended budget from the Finance and Budget Committee.
And without taking too much more time, but was there any, and not reading it, any discussion about levy-funded positions versus grant-funded positions, or is it straight across the board?
At this point, with the way that it is worded, it's straight across the board. There's no delineation between funding sources.
Okay, well, thank you for the information.
And understand that is a proposal.
Pardon?
That is a proposal in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then also, now we have another speaker with us this evening for an update on the Chippewa Valley Innovation Center. And you should have at your place a little bit of information about this. So Mark, would you please come forward? This is Mark Kalish. Kalish.
Good evening, everybody.
Sir, you have to behind the podium just for the taping.
Okay. Yeah, well, I see a few familiar faces out there. Thank you for having me here this evening. Here to talk about the Chippewa Valley Innovation Center. I think you're mostly familiar with what we're doing there. I don't know how many of you know who I am. I've got quite a bit of history with the center. I started there in 1988, just after the center became established, and worked there for 5 years, at which time I started a powder coating and metal fabrication business called Envirotech, which I ran for 25 years, built a building right there in the Chippewa Valley Industrial Park, ran that for 25 years, sold it 3 years ago, and now I'm running the center again. So really pleased to be back with that. Really enjoy the people that I'm working with. I just passed around a flyer that we actually just completed this draft today, so if you see any typos, let me know. But we're using this as part of our campaign for private sector funding this year. and tells a lot about our story. We've had 63 businesses through the program since we started in 1986. Over 600 600 jobs created, $27 million in local reinvestment, and I think it's $150,000 in 2018 property taxes paid by our businesses that have been through the center. So it's been a very successful program. Eau Claire County has given us $10,000 since I think we started in 1986. It's been the same every year. We've never asked for an increase. It's a very efficient program that makes very good use of those dollars in creating those jobs. I think there's a statistic in that flyer that I gave you there that it's like 3 jobs for every $1,000 that's spent in investment. I guess with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address any.
Are there any questions? Pat Lavelle, Supervisor Lavelle.
I don't have any questions, but I've been on the board now going on 4 years. And Mark, you've been with us now. You were on the board, but then you were hired as the director probably about 1.5 years ago, somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I got on the board in '86, Cliff Chatterton was instrumental. Him and Wes Westfall donated the land where the building is now. So it's been real successful. We're about to lose Premier Dyes. That's been there, 5 years?
Yeah, that's something I should have touched on. We're full right now. We've got 2 businesses in there that are very successful. We have Precision Dyes. They make extrusion dyes for the plastic sheet extrusion industry. And we have another one that's just started a couple of years ago, Wolfridge Manufacturing. They're making these high-end log splitters and doing very well. I think between the 2 businesses, they employ close to 40 people. And they're both building buildings right in the, right next to the center out there. Well, I guess the Precision is out in the West Side Industrial Park by Nestle. They bought land up there.
One of the things, Mark's got a big hole to fill when Precision Dive moves, because it's about half of the building that they're going to be empty, that he's going to have to.
I'm really optimistic about where we're going to be at with that, though. I've had quite a few prospects. I'm meeting with another one tomorrow. He's got another kind of plastic extrusion business. We just recently also, I should mention, we hired Northwest Regional Planning to do a market study for us to help us with our next 5-year plan. It appears that as far as the market that we're serving and trying to generate manufacturing businesses that generate manufacturing jobs that tend to pay a little higher, we're in the right niche. It was overwhelmingly clear from that study that that was the #1 thing that we should be focusing on with our mission.
I want to tell you a little bit about the wood splitting company that's out there. They ship all over the world, but back in the old days when you didn't split with them all, and if you were lucky enough to have a wood splitter to use, these right now, they roll the wood over, press the thing up, and it lifts the wood up to the splitter, and then it splits it. So, modern technology. So. Yeah. But Mark is doing a real good job. He seems to fit in well out there, and he's good with the clients.
I really do enjoy what I'm doing there. Start working with the startup businesses. I've started probably 10 different businesses myself over the years I've been working, and I really do enjoy working with the entrepreneurs. I should also say if you're part of a civic organization or any other type of group that would ever have a need for a meeting facility, we have a very nice boardroom out there, and we're always open to letting the public come in and show off what we have going on there, if that would ever be appropriate for any of your organizations.
Thank you. Supervisor Hennig.
I was on the board before Pat kicked me off.
I remember you, Ray.
And I was totally impressed the years I was on that committee. It is really rewarding just to watch it operate, because they come up and give reports on different occasions as required, so that everybody knows what's going on up there. but everybody is eager to succeed because they appreciate what's being done for them. So I was really proud to be on that committee.
Right,
Keep up
right.
the
And
good
you can
work.
see from the list of donors on that flyer that I passed around that a lot of the businesses that have been through our program are now contributing to the finances of our program. Like you said, they're grateful for what we've done.
Yep.
Thank you. And Supervisor Russell.
Yes, I was wondering, with all of the concern about workforce shortages, does that have an impact on startup businesses? Are they concerned or confident they can?
Well,
Can we generate a workforce
definitely
if they bring
a
up a
concern.
business?
Yeah, you notice on there that our board members include workforce resource and the technical college and the university small business development center are all represented. It is a serious problem finding qualified workers. I ran this business in Eau Claire for 25 years. Far and away the hardest thing about running that business was finding people that actually wanted to show up and work. And whatever we can do to resolve that, I guess. It's going to be an ongoing problem, but we've got unemployment at all-time low right now, and it seems like the people that aren't working are not people that want to work or can't work, and finding the good qualified employees is definitely a challenge. But seems like the businesses that we have there right now have got good people, and they're able to find who they need to grow their business, so hope that continues.
Supervisor Anton.
I'm sure nothing gets done by one person or one group. How do you relate to the banks, SCORE, Chamber of Commerce, other organizations in order to pull this thing together so that it is a collective whole moving in the same direction?
Well, I would say that's responsibility I try to put on the board members. That we've got a pretty diverse board there, and I think we can be very proud that we've put together an organization that represents a number of different organizations: Eau Claire County, Chippewa County, the City of Eau Claire. All these different organizations have been involved for a long time, and Service Corps retired executives. I know the new director personally. It's funny you'd bring them up because that's on our priority list to maybe get them more involved. I'm just kind of getting my feet wet again here in the last 6 months, trying to get things rolling with that, and we'll make some good progress. Ask me that question again next year, and I'll have a lot more to report on.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm seeing none, so I thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you all.
Under the next item on our agenda, presentation of petitions, claims, and communication, is a letter from our state senator, Jeff Smith. And in response, actually, to our particular resolution supporting nonpartisan redistricting. So he responded to the board and thanked us for moving that forward. Under our next item on the agenda, first reading of ordinances by committees. And would you read the ordinance, please?
File number 73 is to amend section 4.14.010B of the code, daily juvenile detention rate established.
Thank you. And this is a first reading, and so we will refer this to our next board meeting for action. And then moving down to reports of standing committees and commissions and boards. File 1920-070.
Approving alterations of supervisory district boundaries resulting from annexations for the City of Eau Claire and the City of Altoona.
I would look for a motion from Supervisor Gatlin, seconded by Supervisor Schroepfnickel, and an explanation by Vice Chair Wilkie.
Thank you.
Got it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The
resolution or file 192070 before you is something that we have done in the past. What it's doing is allowing for the change in county board supervisor boundaries due to requested annexation by those individuals in that area. It only involves a very small number of people and a very little change in the districts, but it's something we can do and we have done in the past and should do. It essentially, the reason for doing this is for election purposes. It states there's no fiscal impact, but I should point out the advantage of doing this is it also saves on the printing of unnecessary ballots, having a special print ran for one ballot. So the Committee on Administration reviewed this and on a vote of 5-0 recommends your adoption.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there any questions? Seeing none, would you take your keypad and vote on this issue?
And Supervisor Roberts will be still say vacant, but it'll be Roberts' vote. Supervisor Russell, can you confirm? Unanimous.
It passes unanimously. The next item of action that we have is from Planning and Developing, file 1920-056.
Amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Drammen.
Would look for a motion, Supervisor Leary, and seconded by Supervisor Lavelle, and explanation by Supervisor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is a rezoning request that we had the hearing for the Planning and Development Committee at our last meeting, October 8th. This is for rezoning of 11.57 acres from the Agricultural Preservation District to A2 Agriculture, and it will be to allow development of 2 5-acre plus or minus lots for single-family residential development. But also as part of this, and the reasoning that it was presented to the Planning and Development Committee was that it will also preserve the sections of the property that are currently in agricultural use, and it will remain that way. There had been a family situation where there is a divorce, so this is part of the way that they were trying to preserve the agricultural use of certain properties. The town of Drammen passed a recommendation for approval 3-0, and also the Planning and Development Committee at our hearing on October 8th also recommends approval 3-0, and we hope that you will support it as well.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, once again, would you take your keypad and vote on this resolution? And that passes unanimously. The last file that we have this evening is from the Committee on Finance and Budget, a resolution on sale of bonds.
File 1920-072 is a resolution awarding the sale of $9,985,000 general obligation promissory notes, Series 2019A.
I'm looking for a motion. By Supervisor Dunning, seconded by Supervisor Cronk. An explanation by Supervisor Braconis. Oops.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you should all have in front of you a document that looks like this from Ehlers. And if you turn to the first page, what you'll see is that Eau Claire County went out to get bids for bonding for 2019. So it's important to recall that what this bonding is doing is paying for projects that are part of the 2019 budget. This isn't for 2020, it's for right now, projects we've already engaged in. So what happens is we pay for these projects as we move through the year, and then right about this time of year, we bond to essentially reimburse ourselves. A couple of things are important about this. One is we got a very favorable rate of 1.79%. It's extremely favorable. However, we've been informed by our bond people that they're alarmed at the rapid depletion of our fund balance because it's gone down by several million in the last couple of years, and that we need to be watching it very carefully. And one of the elements they said, one of the things they said was it was very positive that we are watching our fund balance as closely as we are. Not that, well, that we're watching it as closely as we are watching it. So it's important that we do this. Another thing, for the benefit of the new supervisors, it's important to understand that when we bond like this, it's only for capital projects. We cannot bond, we cannot borrow any money for operations. It's in state statutes that we may not use this type of vehicle for operations, because what we're doing is we're levying to pay our debt. So we can only change our levy for, increase our levy for the purposes of paying debt service. And that's what this bonding, that's what we'll levy for in January, to be able to pay down this bonding. So it's really important that you note the distinction. We're bonding for capital projects, bridges, roads, vehicles, new lighting in the jail, that type of thing. So it's important also to keep in mind that if our bid changes, if, for example, the bond guys say, look, you're not paying close enough attention to your fund balance and we're seeing some concerns, if you look at this page that we have, if our bid would go up 0.2% from 1.7 to 1.9, the difference in interest to the county is $77,000. That's a lot of money. So right now, what we have is a very favorable rate from Moody's. We're a AA1. They were considered stable, but we could shake off of that pretty easily. And some of our surrounding municipalities don't have that level of stability. They have negative ratings. So it's really important, number one, we want this to pass. We've already spent the money. And number two, that everyone in this room should understand why fund balance has become a very important thing for every one of us. We all have a responsibility to pay attention to what's happening to our fund balance. So I encourage your support.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there questions? I'm not seeing any, so please take your pad and vote on 1920-072.
Supervisor Coffey? Unanimous.
It's a unanimous decision. Thank you. We have accomplished our agenda, and before we adjourn, I would ask that you keep our chair in your thoughts. He has had another surgery. If you get a chance, drop him a little note, encourage him to get well, and we'll see you at the next meeting. We are adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689. Or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715